Hi, everyone. So, just a quick intro. Thank you all for joining us. A huge thank you to Estelle and everyone at Forever for putting this event together, as well as Barbara's Bookstore for hosting this GALentine's event. The staff at Barbara's will be dropping links to purchase or pre order books for my panelists, so look for those in the chat. So, I'm Kini Allen, and you can find me online at KiniLay1, where I talk about books and cats. So tonight we have three amazing authors with us, and I'll introduce them, and then we'll chat, and we'll have some questions, and we're just going to have a lot of fun. So first, I have Farah Heron. She writes romantic comedies and women's fiction full of huge South Asian families, delectable food, and most important, love. She lives in Toronto with her husband, two children, a rabbit named Strawberry, and she recently adopted two cats who are now in charge. Her next release is Accidentally Engaged, and it'll come out on March 2nd. So next up, we have Jenny Holliday. So Jenny is a USA Today best-selling and Rita-nominated author whose books have been featured in the New York Times, Entertainment Weekly, the Washington Post, and National Public Radio. So Jenny grew up in Minnesota, and she started writing at age 9 when her 4th grade teacher gave her a notebook to fill with stories. Her next release is Sandcastle Beach, and that releases on March 9th. Then we have Farah Rochon. Vera is a native of Louisiana. She's a USA Today bestselling author, and she officially began her writing career while waiting in between classes in the student lounge at Xavier University of Louisiana. When she's not writing in her favorite coffee shop, Farah spends most of her time reading. And in a pre-pandemic world, she was traveling the world, hanging around on Twitter all the time, visiting Disney World, and trying to attend as many Broadway shows as her budget would allow. So her next release, The Dating Playbook, is out in August of 2021. So thank you all so much for being here tonight. I'm so excited. So first, if you all could tell us a little bit about your books.
Who's going first?
So whoever wants to go first.
Who has the book that's coming out the earliest? That's Farah, right?
Farah. Mm-hmm.
So
Yay,
yeah, I just took over.
It's very glary. My I don't know what's wrong with my camera today, but I'm a little washed out. But this is Accidentally Engaged. I'm super excited it's finally coming out because I feel like this book has been through the ringer. It's coming out March 2nd, and it is about a woman who gets set up with a man by her parents, but she has no interest in doing anything that her family wants her to do. But then he ends up being really hot, and he lives across the hall, and then they end up pretending to be engaged to enter a cooking contest together. So it's a fake engagement slash arranged marriage, but it's also really about food and family and how to deal with your parents and culture and things like that. I'm really excited it's coming out soon.
I've read it already. I was fortunate. Thank you, Estelle. And it's so good. And anybody who loves bread and cooking shows will really love Farah's book.
Yes, so, it's really the carb heavy.
Yes. Okay, so Jenny, yours comes out on March 19th. So tell us a little bit about that.
So Sandcastle Beach comes out on the 19th or the 9th? The 9th, I think. Could be wrong about that because they moved it a few times. I'll check on that. It is it's the third book in a series called Matchmaker Bay that takes place in, I like to joke that I'm the leader of the extremely small category of Canadian beach town romances. It's set in a fictional town on Lake Huron. I'm actually, I have to kind of backpedal. There are actually other authors who write beach town romances in Canada, including the wonderful Zoe York. But the book is about two business owners who are rivals and have been for years. She is a owner of a theater company, and she's always walking around town in, like, she does murder mysteries. She's walking around with like gore coming out of her and stuff like that. He is the bartender, and they hate each other, but they don't really know why. They just sort of have always been at each other's throats. And of course, we know why, right? Because there's that sort of fine line between love and hate. And they have to compete for an economic development grant.
And that's the third in the Matchmaker Bay.
The third, yeah.
Third, and
but
it
is
the
a
final?
standalone.
Okay.
It is the final, I'm sorry to say. But yeah, it does work as a standalone. You don't have to have read the previous two.
Awesome. Thank you. And then Farah, tell us about your book.
Yes. So I do not have the cover, but I have it on my website and it's gorgeous. So go on the cover because it does not come out until August. But it is the second book in my series. The Boyfriend Project was the first. And as you see, I have a couple of those. And this book features Taylor Powell, who is a bit of a hot mess. Anyone who read The Boyfriend Project would know this. She is a struggling Instagram fitness guru wannabe. And she is trying to get her business off the ground, but she's been having a bit of a time doing that. And in The Boyfriend Project, I introduce these three girlfriends who, I should give a little background to it. It's these three girls who find out they're all dating the same guy. They find out via Twitter while Taylor happens to be on a date with him, and she's live tweeting it. So the girls, they all dump the guy, and they form this pact where they are all working on themselves for the next 6 months. And like I said, this is Taylor's book. She, after their whole breakup goes viral, Taylor was hoping that that would be the thing that put her fitness business on the map. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. However, in her book, she is contacted by an ex-NFL star who is trying to get back into the NFL, and he's looking for a trainer. And he sees her videos on YouTube and contacts her. And she thinks, this is it. I'm finally going to, I've got this NFL guy. I'm going to be able to get my business in front of all of these people, except that he, Jamar Dixon, my hero, does not want anyone to know that he is trying to get back into the NFL. So she can't tell anyone that she's working with him. And that's the gist of the Dating Playbook. And it's actually a fake dating story as well, because Taylor opens her big mouth, and in order to save, his secret, they have to pretend that they're dating so that people don't know that they're actually working together. So I wish I had the cover. I should have printed it down, but like I said, go to my website. It's cute.
Yeah, I think the link that the bookstore has shows the cover. So everybody should go check that out and possibly pre-order it. So one thing that is very strong in all three of your books is the female relationships, friendships. So for you, why is that important to write? Whoever would like to go.
Okay, so I'm we'll go backwards this time. For me and for this series, it was actually a departure, even though I have written series in the past that have these, girlfriends and friendships. I've never written one where the friendship was so out front and center. I see a lot of people say that they were kind of more, invested in the friendship between the three women than in the romance in The Boyfriend Project, because it's such an important part of it. And I think it's because I just have so many strong female friendships in my own life. For some reason, that just, when these three women got on page, the chemistry between them, it just took off. And that kind of guided it for me. But I think it's influenced a lot by just the various female friendships that I have in my own life. And I just thought it was important to, have that in there, especially with the the way the girls meet. Again, so many people said that they thought they would, there would be a big cat fight or something, and they were surprised that instead of fighting each other, that they actually banded together, which never crossed my mind that they would fight each other. So the fact that so many people, thought that's how the book would go tells me that that kind of book was needed. So I'm very happy that I did it. It's, I think it was needed. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Jenny?
I guess two reasons. One is the same. It's just like, that's my life. So I don't know what I would do without my close female friends. We're not celebrating in person, but we have a special little GALentine's thing happening this year ourselves. So that's, I guess it's just important to me in my life, and it makes its way into my books. Funnily enough, my previous series, Bridesmaids Behaving Badly, was actually like constructed from the ground up around this friendship between these four women. This current series, I was trying to flip it. The backbone of it was supposed to be the men, but it kind of, and I guess it's there, but it kind of, like, the women sort of took over, I think, in my imagination and in readers' imagination. So I seem to not be able to avoid it. But then the other answer is, I think, and I don't think I do this on purpose, like I don't plan this into my books, but I find when you're writing a romance novel and the main characters have to have some kind of growth arc, like they have to sort of realize something about themselves. For me, it always seems to be that the way that happens is somebody kind of slaps some sense into them. And it can be family, but it's often friends in my book. And I don't set out to do that, but I think that kind of subconsciously is maybe what's going on, is the voice of reason, or the Greek chorus is the group of friends, the found family.
Yeah.
I love it when Jenny starts getting analytical about romance novels. This is why I love hanging out with her. But that's totally it. That it's almost like the Jiminy Cricket. The best friend is the person in the ear that's telling the person what they're doing, or showing them their true self. I think for me, a lot of it is, I'm not really I don't have a huge friend group of girlfriends. My friends are varied, and I don't have that GALentine's, like, that's not really my lifestyle, or I go out for drinks with just girls or anything. We usually I'm usually with my husband and all of our together friends. But for me, when I'm writing it, I always try to write those characters because I find that having somebody that knows the character so well, like a best friend would, especially a long-term best friend, it really helps with character development, because obviously the hero and heroine or the love interest doesn't yet know them that well, unless you're doing some friends to lovers or something. So it gives me a chance to show the character's true self by having them interact with somebody who knows them so well. It's funny, I'm working on my YA right now, and my first draft of that book, it's not set in, like, the character goes away. And the first draft I wrote, the character went away alone, and the book wasn't working, and I couldn't figure out why, but it just was not working at all. And then I'm like, you know what? Her best friend's going to come with her for the summer. And that totally changed it. And I was able to get deeper into my character, because that person that knows her so well is there to make the wisecrack or whatever, to show the readers who she really is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so interestingly, my sister and I were talking about books over the weekend, and we were talking about a specific book, and I said, one of the things about that author, even though I'd only read a very small portion, is that they like to isolate the heroines. And I do not like that at all, because it takes away the opportunity for there to be, like, the voice of reason, and I get, like, an author choice. I get why it makes it angstier and all that. But for me as a reader, what I look for is, I want to see, like, fully developed people who have friends and aren't solely dependent upon the love interest. Like, that to me is not always very interesting. Sometimes it works really well, but most of the time.
I also think that, like, we're in kind of a golden age of that right now, because I feel like for a long time, here I'm going to get analytical again, Farah.
Do it.
Like in culture and in romance, in like pop culture and romance, it was all about like the not like other girls girl, or the girl who had guy friends who was so cool that she didn't need other girls. And that was kind of like a cultural moment that I think we have swung away from, which I think is good.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think also to give I mean, we're creating. We lost Kini.
She lost something, and I think.
Here, I dropped my earbud.
So I was thinking that we're creating happily ever afters. We're creating these healthy relationships for them, and I think somebody that doesn't have anybody in their lives prior to meeting their significant other, that person is probably not a psychologically healthy person. Yeah. They need a support system outside of their relationship. So I would have trouble buying into a healthy relationship if that person doesn't have anybody outside of that relationship. Yeah. So putting that on the page gives the reader an idea of their own psychological well-being and health.
Yeah. So often the best friend or the girlfriends are like the sounding board who don't mind being the sounding board. You know, your best friend is the person who you can just give them all of your crap and they will happily accept it and help you if you want help, or just listen if you need someone to just listen. And like you said, if someone doesn't have, it's hard to imagine. And I guess because I have that, you know, I cannot imagine not. So I really feel just horrible for someone who does not have, you know, at least one person like that in their lives. And I think, Jenny, like you said, that, you know, not like the other girls type person. You see it in YA so often, but you also saw it in romance a lot. Yeah, I'm kind of happy that, you know, we've moved away from that, because I see myself as that kind of person in a way. But even as I've been that, you know, type of person, I had the girlfriends too. You know, it's like, it's not one or the other. You can be both. So I think that makes a more well-rounded character, and that's what we're seeing more. Yeah. So.
And not to belabor it, but also, like you said something, Farah, how some people who read your book were surprised that the leads became friends as opposed to enemies, because, you know, not to take it too far deep, but I think a lot of times we're conditioned that women should hate each other for things that are out of their control. And so seeing, you know, seeing that like subverted and take it and like differently, and just saying like those women saying like, hey, this was out of our control. It wasn't something that we did. It was something that he did. And so we are going to be friends and, you know, build on that, as opposed to being like, I can't believe, you know, whatever. Yeah. So that was really good to see. Okay. So we got a little analytical about things, which, you know, that's good. That's fun. So, and we were kind of talking beforehand also. Jenny said that she had seen an article on The Atlantic that she very, very briefly skimmed. But one of the things that I was talking about also was that how we are conditioned to put a lot of emphasis on romantic love versus friendships or GALentines, if you will, and just how I enjoy seeing healthy depictions of friendship and non-romantic love, because it can be, you know, like I used to joke with one of my girlfriends, like, those boys will come and go, but we'll still be here together, you know? And I think that's important, and it's important to see and in all of media, but particularly the ones I think that I consume the most. But so this brought me to, I used to watch Grey's Anatomy, and Meredith and Christina were like each other's person. And so I was wondering if you guys had a person.
Like in my personal life?
Yeah. You don't have to like expand on it. Just
I have a person in every part of my life. Like if I have, I mean, I've been married for 20 years, so my husband is like my other half. But I also have a very good relationship with my kids. And if I see a funny elephant video, then I'll text it to my son. If I have a question about anime, then it's my daughter. But also then when I'm feeling that I'm just not, when I need support in my career or something, I have my one friend that I go to there. If I need to rant about publishing, I have another friend that's the ranting friend. So I don't just have one person. I tend to compartmentalize.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and I think it would be like absolutely amazing to have one person that I could turn to for everything. One of the things I really enjoyed writing in Accidentally Engaged is, so my first book, The Chai Factor, Accidentally Engaged, the character in Accidentally Engaged is her best friend. It's the character from The Chai Factor's best friend. And in Accidentally Engaged, her best friend has moved away before the book starts. And that is something that I really thought about, like how hard, because I'd already established that they were super close in the first book, and then now they're not together, and she really feels like her second half is gone. She's got a lot of bad things going on in her life, but you can see that she's mourning the loss of a friendship, of having her friend right there. And I think that's something that you don't necessarily, as a society, we don't necessarily think of that as being something that's really hard for some people to cope with, when your second half is no longer in your life, it is no longer 10 minutes away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just quickly to touch on that, one of the things that I wrote down on my list was, if you've read The Love Lettering by Kate Claiborne,
Mm-hmm.
they have the main character, Meg, and her roommate. They're like best friends, but they are also in a very transitional period of their friendship, and they have to figure it out. And for me, that relationship was more important than the romantic relationship in that book. Like, because of my own personal relationships with some friends that have changed over the years, like that part of it really resonated with me, because we don't talk about the loss of friendships and how to handle those. We only talk about when a romantic relationship is ended. But for me, my girlfriends that we have changed or shifted, that has been harder for me than losing a romantic partner. But
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah,
I really like that about Love Lettering. How she didn't know how to navigate the loss.
Right.
Because it's not something that we talk about as a society. There's no books on how to get over a friend breakup.
Right.
Everything.
Like, it's just a friend. But no,
you gotta do it too. Sometimes you need to instigate it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's very true, Jenny.
Yeah, very true. So, okay, so back to persons or people. So Jenny or Farah, do you guys have a person or people that?
For me, that's what, my person was my older sister.
Mm-hmm.
We lived together she was my older sister. I've known her my, entire life. We lived together for the past 9 years. It was funny because she would, as you talk about how, that person can be more important to you than your spouse at times, she would come home and I'd have dinner cooked, because I worked from home, but I had dinner cooked for her, and she would say, gosh, you're so much better at being a wife than I was. And, because she was married for like 3 years, and that was it. But when she passed away just about a year ago, and when she did, my aunt told me something that has stuck with me all this time. She said, so many people, when they lose a spouse, you hear people, there's all of this grief, and there's groups that you can go to. Because I was telling her, I don't know who to talk to. She's the person that I would talk to for something like this. She was my only sister. And she knew me longer than she knew her spouse. I knew her. If you have two siblings, those people grew up together. They've known each other the longest time. So it was it's extremely hard still every day, but just seeing her as not just my sister, but my best friend, it's like, yeah, I lost my person. She's the one person that there are things that I could tell it to other people and they just wouldn't get it. Thankfully, I also have my cousins. I always said my first friends were my sister and my cousins that I grew up with. So I still have them that I could count on. But it is that, you know, she would agree too, that any romantic relationship she had, they would come and go, but we were sisters for life. And it's something very hard, you know, to get over losing a friendship. I've had friendships that I realize they're here for a season. That's what I'm trying to tell myself, because I've had really great friendships that I never thought would, would die. And you know, those people just drifted out of my life, even though they're still here. And it is hard to lose those. That's why I am grateful that I do have, you know, my cousins and this other group of friends that I have. Because you have friendships that come and go, and it can be very hard. Yeah.
So me, I guess, for sure. And I think I tend to have like a person or people that go with a certain phase of life. Not that we've broken up or anything, but for many years before I was married and had my son, I had a best friend who I worked with. We shared an office. That's how we met. And we used to go, and she's still a wonderful friend. We used to go to her condo once a week on Fridays. We'd take the subway back to her condo because she had a pool. We'd go swimming, we'd eat dinner. And we were both coupled, and lived with our partners, but her husband worked late. And she was cooking dinner, and I was just in this glowy moment of like, oh, we love each other. And I said, you know what, it's just really too bad we didn't meet earlier so that we could have lived together. And she goes, oh, we will live together someday. We will. And I went, what? And she just went, oh, we will. I'm like, are you talking about like, we're going to get divorced? She goes, or our husbands will die. If you just look at life expectancy, it'll work out someday. I mean, she was kidding, kind of, you know, it was like one of those things. But I think now I have a really tight group of neighbor women that I'm friends with. And boy, in a pandemic, it turns out to be really handy that you actually like your neighbors independent of them being in proximity. So we do a GALentine's thing. This year it's, this is going to sound so cheesy. We have cards made. We call, this is embarrassing. We call ourselves the Wolf Pack. You want to know why? Because once, years ago, we went out to eat on foot, had a little bit to drink, and we were walking home, and there was a full moon, and one of them, part of the delightful thing about these women is everyone's very different. And one of them, I say this with love, is very hippy dippy. And she's always knows when the moon is full. And she says, oh, the moon's full. So we went to this sort of village green in our neighborhood and looked at the moon, and somebody goes, oh, we should howl at it, you know, so we did. We sat in this park and howled at the moon in public. So, then we named ourselves the Wolf Pack because that's so,
you kind of have to,
right? So anyway, so this for GALentine's, we have cards, and they circle, they go round robin, and you get all the cards, and you, on your honor, you don't look at the one that has your name on it, but you open all the other ones and you write a little message to the other people, and then at the end they all get distributed. So you get a card that has like 4 little love notes in it.
That's so nice.
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
Who organizes that? I feel like that's somebody's. You okay?
Okay, so Estelle and I were talking about this earlier, and Estelle wants to know if any of you are still friends with anyone from your childhood.
Facebook friends, but I wouldn't say, like they're still there, and I'm like, oh, so and so had another baby or something. But I mean, it's funny, Farah, you mentioned cousins. I always think of cousins are the best friends that you kind of have always, like your sister. I have a sister around my age, and she's my sister, and we're super like in tune with each other, which freaks us out. But the cousins are the kind of friends that are just always there that you never lose touch with. And I think that would be there. So I think that would be what I would say, that would be the friends that I still have from my childhood, is my cousins.
Yeah. I have, well, of course, the cousins, like you said, you just can't get away from them because holidays and things like that. But also, I'm from a very small town, and Facebook does help. I've reconnected with a lot of my high school friends. There were less than 50 of us in our graduating class. It's that small of a community. So it's hard to lose touch with those people when your parents still live there. And, so I am still friends. And we went from kindergarten to high school together. It's also one of those towns where it's so small that those people that are in your kindergarten graduation picture are in your high school graduation picture. So, I count myself lucky. I am still friends with a lot of them. And I talk to them, chat. Oh, I see a cattail.
Yeah. My best friend has decided that she's ready to make an appearance. Say hello.
Oh,
Come on, you even put your rose collar on. Say hello.
Oh my gosh.
All right. Okay, sorry. We were talking about best friends. Jenny, did you have any? Are you still connected with any?
I moved away so long ago from where I grew up that it's not that I'm sort of vaguely in touch with some of them, but I'm not super in touch with them, which is a bit sad.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we'll go a few more minutes before we open it up to questions, but do you have any non-book related hobbies?
All of them. Yeah, all of them. So all the bread and Accidentally Engaged, I actually do bake bread. All the food that the character that Rena makes in that book, I have made at some point. So cooking is a big hobby. I also knit. I quilt. I used to sew a lot of clothes. So there was one period in my life where I made a dress a week for this challenge. So I was sewing a new dress every week. So I used to have a sewing blog and he would update it. I play video games. I play the ukulele. And those are my hobbies. And then I also help my son. So we fish, we have boats, kayaking, hiking. So all of them.
Yes, you're very busy. Farah, I didn't know you were a knitter.
Yeah, I do knit. I don't knit a lot anymore. Just deadlines and book stuff is taking up a lot of my time. But I would love to write a knitting. I find that this is a great way to get content for books. Is I can give every character a hobby that I've done before. So I'm hoping to write a knitting one day.
I'll be your beta reader.
Okay, perfect.
As a knitter.
I'm gonna remember.
Farah, I know you're a crocheter.
Yes.
And some of my friends, one of my friends sent me one of the things that you made for, I think, your niece. It was like a halter top.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and she was like, this is so good. I could never crochet this well, though. So.
Oh, no, it was totally easy. And she doesn't even wear that thing, so I wish I could send it to her. But no, crocheting is one of it's kind of a newish hobby. I actually saw Alexis Daria posted something a few years ago that she crocheted. And I learned kind of like when I was 9 or 10 years old. And when I saw her, she posted like a baby blanket. And I thought I should try to teach myself to do this again, because when I started writing full time, one of the hardest things for me was to give myself a break, because I felt like I'm home. I should be writing nonstop. So crocheting was a way for me to, produce something, be productive while also watching television. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of a hobby that I took up just so I could relax and not feel guilty. But crocheting and of course traveling is my biggest hobby. So, I'm that's why I'm sad. Been sad for a year now. But yeah, those would be that's my hobbies for sure.
What about you, Jenny?
No, I was laughing because I do nothing. I don't know. I don't do anything. I don't even really watch TV. I do crossword puzzles, but that's really it. I don't have, not crafty. I don't sew. I wish I did, but I don't know how.
You do pranks?
I do pranks. Hobby. Yeah, I do pranks for my family, but I have to clarify that they are like I don't do mean pranks. I do pranks that the pranky will appreciate. Yeah, I'm good at pranks.
Yeah.
I put a lot of work into those. I howl at the moon with my neighbors, but that's really it. I don't do anything like productive.
But I love when you do like friend things with your group and you dress up. You really go all into that.
I'm glad that you're here because I guess I do have hobbies. I just don't think of them as like like things you make. Yeah, I do. That's really taken a hit since the pandemic, but I have one friend in particular that we throw theme parties, usually just for the two of us, but sometimes we invite other people. So
That's
sometimes God, I'm making myself sound like such a loser. Sometimes the theme is just a color. Like we had a purple party with a dress in purple, and you put Purple Rain and purple people eater on, and you eat purple. We dyed all the food purple. So if you want to start doing theme parties, using a color is an easy way to do it. But our most fancy one was we had a Miss Havisham theme party, from Great Expectations. She's the jilted Victorian bride who's bitter about men. So we had my friend had a big milestone in her life, so she invited her friends, and we all dressed as angry Victorian brides, and we made a cake that we then let decay, and we put a little bridal statue on it that had red nail polish on it for blood. Put spiders and cobwebs all over our house. So I guess my hobbies are more like theatrical. I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's a cool hobby. Come on.
That's great. Okay. Yeah. So before we open it up to questions, I hope people have questions. What are some recommendations, any genre, for books with strong female friendships? So, Farah.
So the ones that I thought of, I just finished reading Sonali Dev's Recipe for Persuasion. And I thought of that one because of, again, what Farah and I were talking about the cousin relationship, that cousin friendship. And I thought that book really, it's an Indian family, and the extended family read really real to me. That cousin, that you can always rely on your cousin and your aunts and everything. I thought that rang true for how my family is. So I really like that cousin relationship in that one. And then Alyssa Cole's A Duke by Default, which is my favorite of that series. I loved the fact that she was away. She went to Scotland to go learn how to make swords, because that's what you do. But she was still in contact with her friends and her sister, and she had kind of a complicated relationship with her sister, but that friendship didn't suffer for being away, and I thought that was really well done. Awesome.
Jenny, did you have some strong female friendship books, Rex?
Yeah, the one that first came to mind is not a romance. It's actually Busy Phillips' memoir called This Will Only Hurt a Little. And if you know Busy Phillips in real life, she's best friends with Michelle Williams. And I think they would probably say that their friendship is the great sort of love of their lives. And, it's not really about that, but it definitely shines through as a thread in that book. In romance, this is a little bit like nepotistic because she's a good friend, but Jackie Laus has a current series called The Cider Bar Sisters that's about friends. And I've actually haven't read the first one. I've read the second one. I'm out of order. I can't keep up with how many books that girl writes. But it kind of reminds me a little bit. There's like a little bit of, but the Sex and the City vibe. Remember where they would always go to brunch? So this is like friends who go to this cider bar in Toronto.
Awesome. I haven't read that one.
Friendship is kind of the anchor, at least in the one book.
Awesome. What about you, Farah?
Okay, so I didn't even think friendships, because that's what this whole thing is about, but that wasn't the recommendations I had. So I will have one that's off the cuff. One was Farah's book, and I just want people to read it for the bread. I'll be honest. There's so much that is great about it, but the freaking bread, y'all. She really had me on Etsy looking for a sourdough starter.
That's amazing.
And it turned out to be so topical because everyone started making bread.
I know. I know. I was thinking the same thing, is that I did not expect that the entire world would be making sourdough the year that the books ended up coming out.
It's worth it just for that, but I did not get the starter because it's too much of a commitment. I realized Abby's book, can't really see it, but Abby Jimenez's Life's Too Short. It doesn't really have a girlfriend thing, but it's great. So I did send that as a recommendation. But when it comes to girlfriend books, one of the best ones I've read recently is Sharina Harris's. You can either say it's I'm Perfectly Happy or Imperfectly Happy. And her book it's got a little romance in it, but it's more about these 4 girlfriends who are college. They went to college together. They all had these plans, and it's like 10 years later, and they all realized that they are not living up to these, plans that they made, all of these goals they set for themselves. And you have all 4 perspectives, and it's just a really great girlfriend book. To me, it had like a Terry McMillan Waiting to Exhale vibe, where they had the 4 girlfriends in that book, and I just loved it. So it's a great book. So yeah, Sharina Harris is I'm Perfectly Happy. It has a great cover. See it.
I'm going to take this opportunity to once again plug Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers. It's a debut. It comes out later this month. It was one of the books of the month this month, and it is so good. The friendships in that made me cry and kept me up all night reading it. They are slightly codependent, but they also recognize it. But the way that they support each other and want to, they basically are like, we will do whatever you need for their little friend group. It's just so fantastic. And the book is incredibly diverse in so many different ways. And it's what I wish to see in pretty much every book that I read. So I will plug that. I'm not paid by Park Row, but it's just so good. So, all right, we have a couple of questions here. So we will get to these really quickly. So Farah, Tej would like to know, did you always like to cook, or is it something new that you picked up?
So I think I started cooking in university. I've always really enjoyed eating, and I used to be the kid that watched my mom cook when I was little. But I didn't really, my parents moved away when I went to university, so I haven't lived with them since then. So I kind of had to learn to cook, because even in the summer and everything, I had to if I wanted to eat. So I've always loved to cook. I've always moved through different things. I don't just, I cook a lot of Indian food, the stuff I grew up with, but I also cook a lot of Chinese food. My husband and I went to Taiwan many years ago, and we learned how to make all these Taiwanese dishes. And so I cook all sorts of things. So that's something that I've always really done. My husband also cooks a lot. I think that I'm just a little bit better than him, but it's really great because we both really like to eat. So I've been super busy lately. So he's been cooking, and I still get really good food, which is great. I really do love writing about food. I'm actually struggling right now because the YA that I'm working on is not about food, and I'm really struggling not to not know what to write about.
So just to ask Farah and Jenny, are either of you really big into cooking, or just
I think anyone who follows me on Instagram will know that I'm always posting something. My new obsession is my air fryer.
Oh.
I've just been air frying everything. But I'm from South Louisiana, very close to New Orleans. I grew up, my mom and grandmother, and always have been, cooks. And my brother is actually a trained chef. So I never really had to cook, but I like to cook. It wasn't until I moved in with my sister that I started cooking a lot more. And yeah, I do like it.
Awesome. You're the second person today to talk about their air fryer. My coworker and I earlier were dreaming of French fries and talking about how we liked our French fries. And she was like, you have to get an air fryer. So
You do.
I have to get an
put
air
it on my list. What about you, Jenny? Are you?
I kind of run hot and cold with it, to be honest. I think I liked cooking more years ago before motherhood, to be honest. I find I go in stages. Sometimes I really like it, and sometimes I just kind of find it a drag.
Sure. I have found cooking during the pandemic to be pretty much a drag. So, but that's just me.
Yeah. I don't know. Sometimes it feels just like oppressive. Oh my God, like food. Why do we need food? Like, why can't we keep on air?
Yes. Okay, so Clarissa is asking if you have any writing rituals, like music, snacks, silence, time of day, anything like that.
Yeah. This is where, okay, I'm going to sound, don't judge me, but I do.
I already love this answer.
I do write too. If I'm not writing, I usually write to white noise. Although right now with the book I'm working on, I've been listening to instrumental jazz, and I actually really like it. So I may, even once I'm done with this book, I may stick with the jazz as long as it's instrumental. But I have to have my coffee, my water, my various gemstones that are writing related, and then I have a diffuser, and I have several different things that I have to diffuse. And based on my mood, I change it like a different color. Like I've been really rocking with blue. So again, don't judge me. I get enough from my mom. But it's like those things, it's like I have to set my mood to work. And so, yeah, that's my whole ritual every morning is getting everything set so that I can write. I really think it's also a way to procrastinate. So it's like, oh, I can't do anything. I don't have my water. Let me go and get it because I'm not ready to sit down and write. So it's kind of like, yeah, let Farah do her little quirky things and get ready and also procrastinate. But
that sounds great. Whatever works for you. What about you, Jenny or Farah?
I don't have a ritual at all. I do something different literally I have to trick my brain into this is a brand new thing I'm doing, writing. I've never done it before. Like sitting in a different room with different music, different drinks, different time of day. I have to trick my brain, otherwise I'll get bored.
Hey,
I don't really have rituals either. I spent a lot of years writing, like when I could squeeze time out between a full-time job and parenthood. Like I wrote an entire book in front of the show Blue's Clues in like 1 hour increments. So I'm pretty good at just like going, or at least I shouldn't say just go, at least like sitting in the chair and just wherever the chair is, wherever I am. But I don't really, I don't know, not really.
So Linnell would like to know, Farah, if you have air fried brownies yet.
I have not.
Well, you better get on it. So
sure.
Now we need to
send me a recipe.
Okay. So, okay, this is an interesting question, and I'm going to ask it. So, Corelia, I never quite get this right, her name. She is big with clitoracy. So, she has an interesting question here. So, sometimes it seems like there's a lack of good words for the female sexual anatomy. When writing sex scenes, what are some words, phrases, or types of description do you gravitate toward, and what do you avoid? How do you make these choices?
So
I know
I'll go.
Okay.
It all depends on, even though my mom does not read any of my books and has not since the very first one, I am, I come from a big Catholic family, and I always think, what if she read this? So I'm one of those people that's going to use not the really flowery like euphemisms, but I won't use the P word because mom wouldn't like that. So I just, she'll never read my books, but I still have to write it. But my aunts read it. And I have an aunt that, one of my first books, my aunt was like, why didn't they wear a condom? And I'm like, why are we having this conversation? So it's like, it was like, okay, nothing that, I want to be able to look them in the eye. So unfortunately, yeah.
That's fine. Jenny?
I think, I don't really know. I will tell you that when I get hate mail, it's almost always about too much sex or too explicit of sex, or swearing. Oddly, I get both of those. And I think that I will kind of do whatever the characters would do, but I won't use, I won't use extreme words in a derogatory way, I guess is kind of what it comes down to. But I would rather have are we going to get into it here? I'd rather have dick or cock than his manhood or his, velvet rod or whatever. So I don't actually, this is going to sound bad, but I don't really give it that much thought. I do sometimes feel like what I have in my mind is that a series should be kind of coherent in terms of heat level. And so sometimes I write book one and it is what it is. And then I feel like I've backed myself into a corner because maybe the next book is not quite so naturally sexy or whatever. But yeah, I'll pretty much say whatever. And I have the hate mail to prove it.
It's hard to please everybody. But the comments here are saying no velvet rod. So if we could avoid that, no sheath, if possible. Every time I think of writing, not that I've ever written a sex scene or that I would, I don't aspire to be an author. So let me be clear with that. But I always think about that scene in 10 Things I Hate About You, where Allison Janney is the secretary and she's writing a romance novel, and the Julia Stiles character goes in there and she's writing as she gets sent to the principal's office, and she might say something about turgid or something like that. Somebody's gonna have to remind me what she says, but it's super awkward and silly, and I always think about that sometimes. Okay, so we only have a few more minutes, and I know Farah has something else to get to, so we want to be respectful of time. But who is your go-to author to read that you have to read as soon as their new books come out?
I don't think I have one anymore. There's always something else going on when my favorite author has a book out. Tessa Dare. I always try to get to Tessa Dare's books. Maybe not right away, but.
Okay.
I think Alexis Hall is one of mine. And I would say Molly O'Keefe, but she writes too many books. I can't keep up with her.
I know. Molly, slow down.
Yeah, I was the same way. I used to have a ton until, deadlines stopped me from being able to drop everything and read. But of all people, the one that I could think of the most is Sandra Brown. If Sandra Brown puts a book out, I may not read it the same day, but I'm going to read it within the month that it came out. She is, and maybe it helps that she only puts out one a year, but she's one of the first ones that I started reading eons ago, and she remains, there's a new Sandra Brown. Okay, I got to find the time to read it. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. So I think we have time for one more quick question before we kind of wrap up. But do you cast your heroes or heroines for inspiration? Pick an actor or actress?
I don't normally, but this is actually kind of funny. Normally I don't at all. But my book that's coming out with Forever next year, so not engaged, but the next one, that one I did. And the whole time I was writing it, I was very much had this one actress in mind, but I didn't tell anyone about that. And then when my editor asked me some questions about covers and who I saw, I sent her the picture of it. Well, this is who I saw. And she's like, that's really funny. That's exactly who I saw when I when I read it. So I'm like, okay, so I was a lot more, either I was more obvious than I thought I was, or it really worked, and that's what readers are going to think too. So that's good.
And
I don't
Jenny,
really-
you said
Well,
you
I don't cast them. I'm not like, I don't feel like I'm pop culturally literate enough that I would all be like old people. But I will say with this last book, I sometimes like kind of riff on like a vibe that comes from a TV show or a movie. So for Sandcastle Beach, I'm totally dating myself here. It was the TV show Moonlighting. Does anybody remember that show?
Oh, yes.
Right? So I haven't seen it since back in the day. I don't know. It probably is. You know, I think about how like they were always slapping each other. It probably doesn't stand up to modern scrutiny. But the idea of them just kind of being always like bantering while they were walking or doing other stuff was kind of what I was going for with my characters in Sandcastle Beach.
I like that. Okay, that just like sold me on it right now.
Okay, good.
Best theme song ever, and I love the show. I didn't start casting. I don't think I really cast at all, but my editor, she wanted me to do a Pinterest board because it was for cover concept. And I remember I like found pictures in earlier books. You know, I used to do something like that, but now I've got everything. I know how they approach the books. I know how I have fun with it. Again, it's probably a procrastination thing for me. I realize that now. But I can call it work because I'm doing it. But I actually like it, casting them. And yeah, it's fun. And I can envision them in my head after that. So
awesome. All right, so before we wrap up, if everybody could just go around one time and remind us of the book that you have coming out, when it's available, and where people can find you. Farah, let's go with you.
Oh, Farah.
Yeah.
Okay. So the book that I have coming out, it's not coming out until August 17th, but it is the Dating Playbook. And I really hope that people will support indie bookstores like Barbara's. You can also get the Boyfriend Project, even though it's been out since June. If you don't have it, please support indie bookstores for it. And you can find me, unfortunately, everywhere because I'm on social media way too much. But I'm most fun on Instagram. So find me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Go to my website. I have links to all. And also I have a fan club on Facebook that I don't tout enough. But we have fun and I do fun giveaways. So find me in all those places.
Awesome. Jenny.
Sandcastle Beach comes out March 9th. The previous book is obviously still available, Paradise Cove. It came out this past summer. Where can you find me? Well, actually, Farah and I, along with another Canadian rom-com writer, Jackie Lau, have a joint Facebook group that is called Northern Heat, because we're so clever. Haha, get it? Because we're all Canadian. Where we tend to talk mostly about Keanu Reeves, yeah, and food. Pretty much is what we do there. So that's Northern Heat on Facebook. You're welcome to join us. I'm not really active on Facebook other than that. You can probably find me most on Twitter. I'm Jenny Holly there. JENNIHO. No. I don't know. Look up Jenny Holliday on Twitter. ENNYHOLI. That's what it is. And I'm on Instagram as well.
All right, Farah.
Okay, so Accidentally Engaged comes out March 2nd, and it will be available everywhere in audio as well, and in the UK on the same day. And then I have another book coming out at the end of the year, which is my YA debut. It's a YA romance called Tahira in Bloom. And I don't know a date for that yet. And then you can also get my adult debut, which is The Chai Factor. You can kind of see it behind me, The Chai Factor, which is available now. It came out in 2019. And then I'm everywhere. I'm Farah Heron on Twitter, Farah Heron author on Instagram. I don't really do Facebook other than Jenny and I and Jackie Lau's group, Northern Heat, but I'm around. And I'm also kind of exploring TikTok. So if you're interested in that, watching me make a fool of myself on TikTok, then I'm Farah Heron author on TikTok.
All right, I'm going to have to look that up. Okay, so thank you all so much. This panel was fantastic. Again, thank you to Estelle and the team at Forever for putting this together, and then Barbara's Bookstore for hosting it. And they've posted several links for folks to pre-order and purchase books. So as Farah said, we hope that you will support your local indie and purchase from them. So anyway, thank you all so much, and enjoy the rest of your evening, and we will see you on the internet.
Thank you.
Bye,
You're
everyone.
welcome. Thanks.
Bye.
All right. Bye.